Of course you did.
Never my fault. Cool. So now, is it visible?
I'm just refreshing.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
Loading.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now it's working.
Awesome. So we're going to pretend that I didn't just say all this 5 minutes ago. And if you're watching this on replay, you can skip the next 2 minutes. But hello, and welcome to everybody live in the near distant future to week number 12 of Flutterflow Live, where we are going to be talking, led by our prestigious community guest, Ali, about migrating from MySQL and WordPress and how you can make that all work together with Flutterflow seamlessly and smoothly, and hopefully avoid some of the headaches by benefiting from Ali's wisdom. And we will also talk about a bunch of other stuff as usual. But without further ado, I will let my two friends here introduce themselves. And anybody who has any questions, do jump in at any time, by the way, for any of us. Happy to answer. So, Ali, introduction number 2, round 2.
This feels weird now. Hi, my name is Ali. I'm from South Africa. I actually enjoyed the stream that you did without the video because you got a little bit personal in that, and then just disappeared. That stream just went away, and I was like, I'm just getting to know you guys.
Actually, you can watch it in my YouTube channel.
Is it okay? I'll go over there. I was too pressed because Josh was busy. Josh was busy sending me messages about his timestamps. I want my timestamps. Where are they?
But yes, Ali is the man who contributes.
We should pay Ali right away.
No, let's not get crazy here.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we really appreciate those timestamps or lightsaber, because I didn't even know actually that it automatically did it until Ali told me. So for those of you who like timestamps, this is the man to thank. And yeah, our heart-to-heart opens.
Now there's a face and name to it. Now there's no backing out of this one, is it?
Yeah, you're on the hook now. Cool. Well, thank you for the introduction.
Yeah, so I don't want to introduce myself, but we can just start with a couple of questions for Ali. So today we'll talk about WordPress. That's just George said we'll talk about WordPress, and that's why Ali is here and just sharing his experience in general with Flutterflow. So what do you think, Ali? Should we start with your general experience with Flutterflow, or
you
sure.
Do the news first. Sorry, before you get started,
there's lots of news, by the way.
The news. Just to keep whatever little bit of structure we have to these hour-long sessions.
It's my
so I will pull that up because there have been a lot of things which we almost accidentally shared with you last week until Gretchen told us not to. About which I think Dimitar is very excited about, because I saw the word API in the announcement very near the top. So you can hopefully see my screen.
Yeah.
There's nothing to see, but here we go. One day I will remember to load this before I get here. Flutterflow conference.
And we have actually a question from that's hard to read your name, sorry about it. But he asked, I just wanted to check if you'll be able to cover how you guys update state of a Flutterflow widget from custom widgets. So the thing is that about that, I actually, Josh was the one who actually broke this, so to say. So he was the first to invent the way how you can do it. And actually I created a free item for the marketplace, but I'm still waiting like 2 or 3 weeks from now. I'm still waiting for Flutterflow to actually accept my item in the marketplace. But yeah, you can definitely do this. The short answer it's you have to use action. So when you have a parameter, you have to use the action. But maybe if we have time at the end of this stream, we can cover this as well.
Yeah, essentially it's using, as you said, using local state, a little bit of a hacky way, but it does work fairly reliably. So we can definitely, if we don't get to this week, I can always write up something. And out of curiosity for all the people here, has anybody submitted stuff and know what the average wait time for the marketplace is? Because I've got something that I've kind of been waiting on too. I don't know if you've got a few things, Dimitar, no?
Yeah, I'm just waiting.
But you guys were VIPs.
If
anybody knows, you should know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the one that I wanted to submit, they don't really support because it involves Firebase, which was for Mr. Vargas of the community about merging images, but I can't really do it. So we may have to find another way to do that on our Flexpert site to host that content for people, because I've had a few people asking. Anyway, what's new in Flutterflow? September 9th. Do you want to kick us off, Dimitar?
Yeah, so
APIs
about the
level up?
API, yeah, about the API things, can you just go to a is it okay to just go to a project and just we can go from there and just we can talk about the new
Sure
features
thing.
and the new stuff. So actually the UI is changed right now. Now the APIs are on the left side, and you can actually group APIs. So grouping APIs
Yeah,
means
what's
that,
that?
yeah, grouping APIs means that if you have one arrow, so for example, there are many examples, but for example, if you have like demo.com/request, and then you can use the same arrow, and this API calls, all those API calls will be grouped together in this create API group. And if you can just create just a normal simple API call, just not a group one, but
Oops,
just
sorry.
click on the, yeah.
Can you import a Postman collection in here? Because that's what this is for, basically. Like when you have a whole Postman collection related to like a third-party provider, like a Stripe or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's no way to like import that, is it?
No, unfortunately, right now it's no way to import. But I hope in the future that would be great if you can just import from Postman or from Insomnium, some other place. That would be great
Make.com.
because because you don't need to write like I have like 10 or 20 API calls in every my project, so you don't need to do this. But hopefully that is coming up. So they actually changed the headers and the query parameters and the variables
It's a lot different.
advanced settings. So if you click on advanced settings, because this is, I think this is something new. At least I didn't saw that before.
No, response, advanced settings here.
Yeah.
Cool.
So we have this option that you use proxy for testing and use proxy for run test mode, which actually means that this is actually because of that they're restricting the. Sometimes you can have a problem when you're testing your APIs from outside your main domain. So if you're, for example, sending something to wherever.com from Flutterflow.io, sometimes the browser will complain about it and will say the cross. It's just not on top of my head, but there was an error involving like cross API. You can just read it from there. So this is actually helping to avoid this error, but and it's by default it's on. So you can just turn it off if you think it's not messing with your code and your request actually. So you can also make
Dimitar. Sorry to
so you can also make the
stuff.
Yes, you can also make the private API call, and this is actually used when you have tokens or security tokens or some kind of tokens that you can, if you can enable that right now. So yeah, so you have like require authentication, so you can enable that as well. And then you can actually use this kind. I haven't tested, to be honest, but if you have tested, you can talk about more.
Not yet, no.
Okay,
Where do you normally store your API keys? Like for people out there who are maybe only using a few of them. I mean, I don't necessarily know the answer. What is the best practice when you're using Flutterflow if you've got like a static API key from whether it's Stripe or whatever? Is it okay to put it in the API configuration, or will that then be viewable in your code, or is it somehow obfuscated or whatever the technical fancy word is? Like, what do you do with all your API keys?
Yeah, I'll share my experience if Ali have something to add after that. But yeah, to be honest, talking about the code, I'm not sure, because if you have an app, because right now you can make an app and you can make a web app, which are two different things. I will talk about the app for mobile phones. So in general, there's very hard. I don't want to say that there is no way to view the source code, but it's very hard actually to view the source code. So in reality, when you're making an app and you're putting your API keys in your request, people should not be able to see them from your code, because they will not be able to see your code. So what is the how you should do it? It depends. It depends on what are you using, but I will use variables, for example. If you click variables, and then here I will add like a Stripe hash or Stripe ID or something like that. It will be a string, and then I'll just add it here. This is what I would do.
Okay, so this is private, essentially. Yeah.
Yes, and recently they changed actually because if you just get to the type of the request, can you just change it to post? Yeah.
This looks so much different than the last time I looked at this.
Yes. So when you change it to post, you can see that the body, it's now appeared, and you can click on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and when you click on it, you have a couple of you have 3 options to put a body. So before that, this is actually an important thing, because I just I just find out that today, that before that my post type was none, and this was actually working great using Flutterflow and using because I'm using Insomnia for testing my requests. But right now, as from this new version 3, you have to actually change this to JSON, and because all my requests are JSONs, and then you have to put can you just write new variable, for example, and then yes.
But, I mean, this is the way that I didn't know you could do it without this.
Same here. I thought you had to do that.
I didn't know there was another way to do it.
It was actually working before, like, so if you can you just put it in double quotes?
Oh yes, double. You can drag and drop it as well.
No, we'll drag and drop that later.
Okay, it's a bit iffy.
And then two dots.
Yep.
And then you can drag that now.
Oh, okay.
Just drag it now without the. Just drag it. Yes. And you can, and if you click on format right now,
of course.
No, it's the format. It's not here. This is important as well, because the format is not only formatting your JSON, but it's actually will tell you if you have any error inside your JSON. So it's important to actually click on the format when you're done.
Yeah.
So it will say that you have some kind of error. So this is actually the same thing like the version before, like version 2 of Flutterflow was actually working without this. This JSON
so how did you
body.
put your body in then? How did you get your information?
It was actually getting the body from the variables. So if you click the variables, it was getting it from here. So basically,
you could create the variables without the body. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. But right now, if you want to, because all my API calls were not working, so this was how I fixed them.
You're too smart for Flutterflow, Dimitar. That's the problem.
Yeah. So this is, I think, all about the API calls. I don't know if I missed something. Ali, do you want to add something or?
No, I'm not too. I don't use that many API calls, and everything I've used so far is pretty much standard cookie cutter stuff. Nothing complicated.
Yeah.
I'm just a Firestore.
What backend do you use, Dimitar?
I'm using my own backend, to be honest.
Okay.
It's better for me to just write my own backend, and I'm using MySQL for database. So
fancy.
So I am the only non-MySQL person in this conversation. I will be able to still find a way to talk about it. Okay, so next update. Let's fly through these. Otherwise, we'll never get to Ali's genius explanations about MySQL and Wordpress. So action 2, request permissions. We've added new action for requesting user permissions, follow camera actions. Plus you can also use permission status, camera permissions, true in your action flows. That's cool. So this is nice. how is this different than what was there before?
To be honest,
okay.
When I saw that, I was not sure how because I never did that, but how was we supposed to do that before that, right?
Before it was handled by the platform. I think the difference here, so when you needed location, it would just sort of trigger automatically. I guess it was plugged right into the kind of the subsystem.
The problem with that was you couldn't after the person denied you afterwards. The only way you could do it later is create a custom action that would send the person to the settings. So if you wanted them to turn notifications on, there was no way to check again and say to them and give them a reason to turn on the notification like you see here. So you can do that.
And I think these screens are important for when you're getting approved by Apple. I think they care a lot about these, especially for Stripe and the camera one as well. I think they're really sensitive about for some reason, even though everybody posts everything to Insta, Snap, whatever nowadays. But cool. Well, that's exciting. And pin code widget. I think I saw a lot of people were really happy about this in the community. It means I can no longer have to try and share my hack together one because this looks much nicer. I think there's a lot of uses. I haven't tried it. Have you guys? Do you know if it's got if you can customize to make this 6 digits? I assume that's it's just one of the Flutter gem packages, right? So my guess is you can change these to 6 as well as just 4. Yeah, because the Firestore ones are 6. So hopefully, if anybody in the chat has tried it, but it looks really cool. I really like it, and that's a great feature, I think. Text field autocomplete. I read this one, but very quickly, and I'm not sure if I fully understood the power of this or not.
I've used this actually.
Okay, so explain it to us. Walk us through what this is.
Yeah, so you can make a call on the text field itself, which will get your documents, and then as the person starts to type, it will show as if it were search results. It will show whatever you called from your.
Does it have to come from Firestore? Does it have to come from Firestore?
The way I've used it, yes. API? The way I've used it, the way I've used it so far is from Firestore, but I don't know if you can use it from any other source of data. So it's like a fancy drop-down, basically.
No, that's really cool. I mean, for address autocomplete, obviously, but connecting it to maybe next week when we do our deep dive on Rowie, we can, if it doesn't take an API input directly, we can hack that together between the two of us. Because, yeah, you could have that API call around the back end and create the document to feed into here, which could work as a temporary workaround. That is very cool. That is very cool. So you feed in a list of documents, and then basically you get live search and filter. And then you can select the options. The one you select the option,
and it just populates the text field with the selection. Yeah,
and it obviously shows up in the widget.
And the user can also still just type whatever they wanted to type anyway. If you haven't put any other restrictions, they can just continue to type and ignore everything that you've. So unlike a drop down, where you have to select in order for your option to appear, this you can just select. It's a very nice way of
this is really
filtering.
Cool. Yeah, all of these search tools users together, like the simple search and all the different ways. Now it's really getting a lot of power, I think, in there. I did notice that with drop downs. Have you noticed that you can't get rid of the icon? It says you can, but you can't on drop downs.
On drop downs,
like there is, on drop downs, there's literally.
I've never been able to get rid.
Yeah, you can if you say use no icon, it doesn't actually hide it. It just it gives you the default one, which is not very helpful. See right here, I have this turned off. I have it turned off or whatever, but yeah. Fun fact. I need to report that. Anyway,
can you just show us, Josh? Can you just show us the new widget? Because I was not right now. I'm searching for it, but I cannot.
The autocomplete. I think it's on the text field. Ali
it's on a text field. So on the text field, there's a toggle button there to say.
I was thinking that it's some kind of special.
I don't have some search inbox. Yeah, I think it's so it's an option, right? Not an action.
Yes,
right?
It's an option.
Yeah, cool. Custom security rules. If you use them, or if you just have everything set to open access like me, you can now write custom security rules for a collection and exclude a collection from rule generation. The new feature allows additional flexibility. If you want to, we should do an episode on rules too, because I've had some issues creating documents in sub collections. I don't know if anybody else has had that, where for some reason is a bit temperamental sometimes, unless I manually change the rules, and I haven't quite figured out what it is. But yeah, unless anyone else has anything on that. How to add the gorgeous parallax effect to your Flutterflow app. This was a really cool video for those of you who didn't see it. It's a very fancy effect. It uses a lot of custom widgets and code, but is very achievable. It isn't actually, I think I misunderstood what parallax is. When I think of parallax, it's scrolling on Webflow. So I got briefly excited for a different reason, but yeah, it looks really cool if you can see it. Flutterflow conference, you can watch it on replay. It was really cool. They talked a lot with some smart people, and Abel and Alex are always fun to watch.
Can I just add two things real quickly?
Yep.
First of all, yes, you can actually, because I'm just playing with it right now. Yes, you can change the pin code length. So you can do 4 or 6 or whatever number that you need.
Size matters sometimes.
And yes, I think you can actually use the auto-completion from an API code and
that is awesome.
Firebase. Yes,
that is awesome for address autocomplete. Like that's a huge saver and way to avoid customers having to go through painful sign-up processes. All right, the final other improvements, you can now show the nav bar on a page that is not on the nav bar.
I think that's pretty cool.
You can now show the nav bar on a page that is not on the nav bar. That is cool. Can you hide it?
Because navigation issues, sure. So I've faced situations, especially for my earlier users of Flutterflow, before they brought out the new feature where you could just cut the routing. So sometimes the navigation would go to a place where you have a back button, but then the person arrived there without coming from another page. So when they navigate back, or there would be no, back navigation, first of all, so they sort of stuck. But this is maybe a list screen that's people will visit quite often through other means. So now I can just put a nav bar there that takes them elsewhere on the application. And of course, this solves a problem for me that I hadn't put much thought on early on when the early apps that I developed, that I created on Flutterflow. They had navigation issues where people would arrive at pages and there would be no way to go because the default back button would be hidden at that point because there was nothing to go back to. So yeah, that's actually cool. No, I see it now. I process it there. I can definitely think of a few. I've had some weird ones recently, like with my shopping cart, whereby the customer, and it's definitely to do with me not being very systematic or maybe not fully understanding when I should allow back navigation and not. And so it comes to the user getting to the cart, and then obviously it must be that they have no route. So they immediately get jumped back to the default, essentially the first page or the home screen of the app, very erratically and unexpected. It took me kind of a while to figure out exactly what's happened. But yeah, as you said, the new feature where you can break the navigation, replace it. You seem to know more about this than me, but helps a lot, no? With that type of stuff. Like when you're finishing an order, that's what you should use it for, right? Yeah, taking somewhere to not having to tap back like 8 times, whatever, you can just shortcut it.
So it's not to help with the situation whereby I'm on my order screen and then I go to confirm. I obviously don't want the person to be able to go back into the order, right? So I want to.
What are you talking about now? The nav bar or the route?
Like the route. Talking about everything all at once. Because for me, in my mind, I don't understand the differences, I guess. So if I have someone checking out, right? They press the checkout button, and I want them to go to like an order success page, like the template one Flutterflow has. At that point, that navigation action you shouldn't allow them to go back, right? Otherwise, they'd be able to go back into the order that they just completed. Right?
Yes.
The issue I was having was that after that, when they landed on essentially the order success, they were immediately like getting bumped away. And it was an issue that, for whatever reason, right there only, I seem to have solved by eliminating that the route break thing, like you said. Anyway.
So before the route break, I would use a custom back button and have some sort of go to a more general page, so it's not very disorienting. But the route I think solves it. I haven't used it yet, but theoretically I think it solves that.
The widget tree now remembers your scrolling position. I have a feeling this is an amazing feature that I've just started.
This is huge.
Not even
It's
noticed,
actually
but
it should be on the top of the list.
I know, exactly. It's
Yeah.
something just stuck in the footnotes, but I think without noticing it, I've just noticed that I've been swearing and scrolling a lot less. That is much appreciated. Thank you, Team Flutterflow. You can now select and delete multiple widgets from the widget tree. I guess it was Shift. Added ability to push. Oh yeah, we talked about that. Google fonts are now automatically added. And finally, added ability to show a loading indicator when an icon button is pressed. Whoa! I feel like those are not all of equal importance. I feel like some of those, like the scrolling one, definitely should have been given prime thing. Tip of the week, use replace root to improve app performance if you want a better explanation than I failed to give. All right. And that's it. Now, over to you, Ali. Let's hear about MySQL, WordPress, Firebase, Flutterflow, and everything in between.
Yeah, you've been building this up, so now everybody's going to be disappointed. Yeah, so the challenge I was having, I'll just go over that quickly. I'll try and keep this very brief. I was saying to Dimitar that I'll just do a quick overview, and then maybe we can do a detailed step-by-step that we can post on the what's the name? Have you published the site yet, Joss? Where you're gonna post all the clips and tutorials and that. Yeah.
On the
live now.
Flexperts feed. Yeah, exactly. It's Flexperts .flutterflow.
Because I'm in a Cool Kids Club now, so I get early access to some.
Flexperts.flutterflow.app/feed. I will pop it in the chat for those.
Yeah. So I'll create a detailed tutorial, not a detailed step-by-step on everything on there. And if I'll just do a quick overview, and if everybody is interested in any further details before I create the step-by-step, they can let me know, and I'll include some of those questions in there. Okay, so the problem I was having was that there was an old website, not an old website, but yeah, there was an existing website that was created with WordPress and WooCommerce with all the necessary plugins to run an auction on that site. And when it started, it was just a simple thing, and then it grew, and they got more bidders. And I'm not a specialist in optimizing. I should have spoken to Dimitar, but I'm not a specialist in optimizing MySQL. So the data usage for that now not necessarily a website anymore, but a web app, went through the roof. It was hosted on AWS, and every time they had an auction, the costs were just incredibly high, because also the way it needs to refresh the auction information is that the page refreshes, and you set that a refresh timer, which is like 15 seconds or 20 seconds or 5 seconds, and you have 300-400 people at the same time trying to bid. It was a mess. So as I learned more and more.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ali, but I think this is the WebSocket. Why there are WebSockets created?
Yes.
So basically, I think the WebSocket in your case, in this case, I think was the way to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And if I was anywhere near Dimitar maybe a year, two years ago, probably would have gone a very different route. But yeah, the level of comfort now I'm feeling with Firebase, with everything having been there, with authentication and real-time features, especially the real-time for the auction side of things, that was important at the time of considering these things. But then the biggest challenge was that this is a MySQL database, and here you have a NoSQL database. So now I needed to get about 3,000 historical items from this WordPress site onto Firebase, and that was a process that involved trial and error. And as I progressed through that, I discovered a few things that I thought maybe I'd share with everybody who might be considering the same here. So
can I interrupt real quick and just say
sure.
one thing? If you had to explain in one sentence to someone who didn't know, what is, when you said very glibly that MySQL, NoSQL, obviously Firebase is NoSQL, how would you explain the biggest difference for someone who's not familiar with those two?
Okay, so probably Dimitar would have a better definition on this, but in my simple understanding and way of explaining it would be, because NoSQL, I just learned about it when I started using Flutterflow. I knew of MongoDB before that, but basically in NoSQL, your data is stored in a not so formatted way. In a MySQL database, you have your tables, which is rows and columns, and they're fixed. And this column is named X, and it will always be X forever, and then some. And this row has Y, it will be Y forever. It will be Y from the beginning to the end. With NoSQL, it creates a lot of flexibility, which I'm quickly learning is a good thing, and also can be a nightmare, which is why I'm looking forward to custom functions so that we can normalize the data. I'm looking forward to learning that quite a bit, because that's apparently the way to go, because you have to capture user information, and then that user information appears multiple times in multiple places, which is not a problem you have with MySQL, right, Dimitar?
Can you just give me an example, for example, because you said a nightmare, can you just give me an example where you need a custom
I'm not attacking
function
MySQL here by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I'm just imagine like how the difference, and it would be just interesting to just give
So
one
this was
example.
not necessarily a MySQL problem. If I was a skilled MySQL user, I would have no problem probably doing anything that I wanted to do. I mean, these are databases used by some of the largest companies in the world. So it's not that it's a problem for MySQL. I am not skilled at that, and at my level, NoSQL was so much easier to grasp than having tried to work with MySQL data. And I think a big part of that was the way Firebase works with Flutterflow makes it so much easier. The way you can pick up errors in Flutterflow, for example, when things break, that little red button, it's so useful, especially when your app starts to grow. So the combination of Flutterflow and Firebase made me lean more towards that direction because of my level of comfort. But I don't think it is anything that you can't really do, that you can't do
I think
with either
it's about the right tool for the right job. I mean, I know that a lot of one thing I less frequently see now, but during the early kind of first year or so of Flutterflow, used to get asked a lot is how do you tabulate stuff? How do you keep counts of things? Because I think that's in a relational database.
Yes.
Use my explanation. A relationship database is a library, and NoSQL is how I organize my papers on my desk, all in a big jumble pile. They live fine together, but it's hard to find things. And that's one of the things that a relational database, I think, is better at. And a lot of people struggle when moving over to Firebase is how the hell do I calculate all of the things in one column, which is really easy to do in a relationship database. That column, as you said, is just that column, and every item has the same number. But to calculate a total of how much have I spent at this eShop? I've got all these order documents. Each one has a price, but how the hell I need to go get all of those documents and then do a manual calculation. Or every time I place an order, I have to add that to my total and keep that somewhere. But what if there's a refund and those things get out of sync, which is, I think, where, cloud functions and housekeeping kind of stuff, which, we can hopefully talk about.
So a whole lot more housekeeping, that's for sure. As your application, anybody who's starting their journey on this, you should just keep in mind that as the application grows, as the complexity grows, housekeeping becomes one of the biggest jobs, I think, that you'll be doing with a NoSQL database. And the relationship part is where I faced some of the biggest problems when moving from WordPress. And I'm going to stop saying MySQL because this is not a MySQL necessarily issue, but it's more of a I'm coming from WordPress. Moving data over to Firebase. Yes, it's coming from. So I'm gonna from this point on, I'm just gonna say WordPress. So the way the data was structured there was that you have an auction, and again, I'll go into details and do a step-by-step on this. You have an auction, and each auction will have multiple items that are in that auction. So the admin would just create one auction, and they will put all the details about that auction in there. If it was a property auction, they would put the property address in that auction post. They would put the viewing times, when does the auction start, when does the auction end, in that auction post. And then you would create different posts, which are now the actual items that are on auction themselves. And I would just relate this information to say this item belongs to that auction, and then it would pull the agent from that auction. And so there was a lot of that. So for WordPress users, they will recognize the heavy use in such cases of custom fields and custom post types. So we had a lot of custom fields, a lot of custom post types, a lot of information relating to each other, which was not difficult to manage because it's a relational database. So my first attempt at that was to download a CSV, because you get all these nice, wonderful plugins that tell you. And then I realized the data is pretty flat when you get it as a CSV. So all the relational stuff appeared as duplicates. So you would have your auction here, and then instead of having an auction and then all these things attached to it, you would have an auction and then one item, and then an auction again, and then so it was a lot of that. Second approach was to get a JSON from that from WordPress. Now WordPress has a very nice to work with API, which you can get data to and from. So I don't know if I can share my screen.
I believe you can.
Okay,
Hopefully.
I'll
I think you can
spend
with the plus.
Okay.
Oh no, with
It depends. What's on your screen, Ali? What's on your screen?
All your wonderful faces. There we go.
All right. Check it out. Authorize it.
I don't know which screen you see now.
You should share it again, I think, because
I think it.
There we go.
Somehow ended. Let me. Okay. Now wait 1 second.
Yeah.
And there we go. Now we're in code land.
Right. So no, not really. So this is Firebase, one of the tools, and in this journey, I discovered obviously Rowie, and Rowie was very useful for another project that I've done. Again, I'm excited, so I'm looking forward to those custom functions, Joss. But, this is Firebase, and it was a lifesaver to me because the nice thing about this is you can import data in JSON. And I didn't know how Firebase structures its data in JSON. I never had a look. I never had a look at it. So if you go into any collection here and you go to JSON, you can see the structure in JSON of how Firebase actually stores this data. So what I did was I created the documents in Firebase the way I would have liked to structure the auctions. Then I came in here. And after I connected the project to Firebase, what I did was I took this JSON as a structure. Then I went to my favorite tool, which Joss has been encouraging me to get away from, Make. Says use a custom function first before you go and create all these scenarios. So what
it's
I did
only because I've been there. I know the pain.
Yeah. So
it's
what
actually
I did
the level it's that Make, and then if you are good with custom functions, it's of course it's better to use custom function.
Yeah, it's always. I mean, I was struggling with the problem, and then he gave me like 4 lines of code, and it was like solved. And here in Make, I had like 5 different parts to choose from. If this, not that, and. But anyway, so what I did here was after taking the JSON structure, I just took this make module, which creates JSON. And obviously for you to create a JSON structure in here, you feed it with your sample data. And then after you do that, it obviously gives you these wonderful fields to work with. So now I had a Firebase document structure in this format, which I could now pass data to and then download it as JSON. So what's happening here is simply that I call the WordPress API, and obviously there's some nested arrays of items in there. So I unnest them and then put it in an array. This is another Make very handy thing about Make. You can just get the arrays and then put it in a format where it will be understood by wherever you're trying to send it to, and then obviously this ends up here. So now this is at the end of this, I send a JSON document to a text file rather to my Google Drive, which has all the items that I wanted to get from WordPress. And at that point, it's as simply as going back to Firebase and click on import, and I just choose the JSON file that I've just created. And the nice thing about this is, if you the way it writes to the database, it's so handy and efficient, and it does the whole batch, right? So data is either complete or incomplete. There's no in between. And just like that, you have all the fields, documents, and fields that you would have wanted in Firebase.
And
so yes,
I have a question actually. I have a question actually.
What you do?
I didn't actually. Can you just explain? Is the website actually working? I mean, the WordPress actually the website.
It is a functional. It is a functional.
So is it like one time really transferring the data, or you're doing that constantly?
Oh, okay. So I'm not connecting the which is why I said the headline was fake news, Josh. I am migrating the data from WordPress into Firebase. So from this point onwards, I am working strictly of Firebase. But here's the thing that happened in between doing all this. They kept adding more auctions, and I wanted to capture those as they came, because I didn't want to go back and redo the whole thing. So I created another scenario which would simply grab those posts as I created and duplicate them because now I already have a structure here. And the nice thing about Make, I think Josh and Dimitar discussed this in one of the streams, how this tool allows you to actually write data into Firebase. However, I
have one more question.
Yeah.
Why you're saving those documents inside Google Docs, and why you're not just importing them directly to Firebase?
So that part, it would be each document would be written as it will be one write, and that would have costed me a fortune on Make.
Okay, I got it.
So
and now
here
right now you're just taking all the table,
yes,
so you're taking
the whole table.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, so take the whole table and then do one import over here, and I have all these things that would have been different posts over there. The nice thing I like about Firebase, I don't know, you guys have used this before?
No. Can you just say a little bit about it?
Can I ask my question really quick before
Sure.
you dive into the next thing? And also, we had ETL bonus points. ETL has a comment from a PH Dave, which is extract, transform, load, right? Which is essentially what you're doing. You're taking database from one database to the other. It's just a fun fact. So my question on your amazingly neat and organized no-code workflow there. So is that, how much of that is to get it out of WordPress in order because we have lots of clients who want to we want to move them from WordPress to anything else in existence, basically, But I'm not really experienced with WordPress. So, I mean, I know there's plugins. I mean, do they all store things? You said you were using the API. Like, how much?
Yeah,
of that
so
was
WordPress has an API which you can use to get the posts. Like in this case, I wanted these posts here. So this is the I don't know how much of this I can share again because it's live.
Of course. But I mean, it doesn't matter what.
But
which plugin it is or something. It doesn't. They're always in the same structure. So that you're
it depends. Oh, okay, it depends because there are some plugins. One of the challenges I ran into was the auction plugin that they used would not out of the box would not connect to the API in order to bring that information. You couldn't query the information from that was created by that particular plugin. But the nice thing about the WordPress data structure is that all of that data is sitting somewhere in a table. So it's just a matter of tapping into it with custom hooks and that. So I got some help for people. For example, there's a limitation. You can only query 100 posts at a time. But obviously I had thousands. So I was going to do you know, 100, 100, 100. So I got someone to create a hook for me, which allowed me to get all the without limitations, the posts without limitations. That is, yeah.
That is crazy.
So
And
this is purely
sorry, I have one more
to get
question.
data from one place to another. Yeah.
So what is actually stopping you from, because you're right now you're using an Apico, so when you have this get product list and you're actually getting the products that you need. So what is actually stopping you to just use those Apicos directly inside Flutterflow?
Okay, so first of all, the management of the APIs themselves. Number two is the because it's an auction site. You would need to the real-time features, which I'm not familiar with WebSockets, of course, because that would be the way to go. Otherwise, the real-time features for Firebase and Flutterflow were very, very attractive. And also, we needed to build a mobile app as well as a web app. Of course, the downside to that is that we lose a lot of the SEO benefits that come with WordPress, building a web app in Flutter. But in this case, the downsides to the SEO loss to the upside of having one of the best auction experiences outweighed the SEO loss in that regard.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. So quickly, just 1 minute to touch on Firefoo. I really enjoy working with this purely because you can manipulate. Like in some cases, in the beginning, I would get the the data. First of all, you can see it. You can't work on it here, but you can see it here. And you can import in JSON, which is a big advantage for me. And also, you can do things like, have you ever tried to rename a whole collection in Firebase? So
No,
it would just do
probably
that.
Josh.
It would. If you try to
I just
rename
go
a
and
collection,
cry in the corner. Just give up.
so yeah, you can just rename it here. There's all these little things. You can move the collection, you can duplicate it, you can rename it. Some of these, of course, you can do in Rowie, and Rowie is very, very powerful in a lot of these things. But there's simple little things which I've quite enjoyed
free, by the way?
working with this, because also
Is
you
it free
can
Fireflow?
no. So this is the downside, the biggest downside compared to Rowie is that, first of all, it's not web-based. You have to download it and install it. So you can't really hand it to a client. It's really for you to work with data. And then also, I think it's $12 a month. I don't remember now. 12, 13,
That must
19.
be why I have it installed right now, but I've never used it in the past year because my free trial must have run out.
Yeah, they have a very generous free trial for I think 30 days or so. And the guy who runs this is very hands-on. So I think he's the developer. So yeah, the renaming of collections, because, for example, I would transfer thousands of collections in here, and then I would be like, no, I want to try a different structure and see how it works in Flutterflow. So what I would do in that case, I would just rename this. It duplicates it, it recreates it, but it does it so efficiently. It doesn't do too many reads and writes to the database. And then I have this as a backup, and then I can do whatever. I can create another collection with the same name, and when I'm done, I delete that collection and put this back. That has been very, very handy for me, because I had to do like multiple iterations before I could get I could get it all to work. One of the biggest things that I didn't foresee when I started, was the null issue. So obviously, if the fields, not all fields that come through here are going to have data in it. In that case, I would just leave it empty, and then suddenly I would be like, oh goodness, I did thousands of these things, and then they didn't work. So the newer flows that you'll see, I have null safety in place. So if empty, do this. If data doesn't exist, do that. And I think there's another flow where I've created where if the data is empty, it doesn't even pass through anyway. But the simplest thing you can do is just say, if this document, this field doesn't exist, or if it's empty, just add a default value there so that the data reads appropriately in Firebase.
Nice.
What was the acronym again? ETL?
Yeah, extract, transform, I believe.
Yeah,
Transform, transfer, load. We also have another, I like this one, from relational database, load is on database server. Non-relational database, load is passed over to the client for filtering and sorting. In other words, you end up doing a whole bunch more custom functions and adding and tabulating with your clients, which I guess if you think about it historically, when, phones, now that phones are more powerful and the ship that went to the moon and whatnot, it's more easy to do that, I guess. But again, it's always depending on your exact use case. I guess internet connectivity, all things like that, are going to be factors. Right tool for the right job. NoSQL is good for distribution, PH Dave says, meaning additional servers are easily added, which, is Firebase just kind of does magic in the background to handle things for you.
Yeah. The problem I'm facing at the moment is the map types have been great for me, because that was one of the because some of the document auction information needed to stay together, so I don't have to repeat myself and all that. But the more I'm doing those, the more I'm thinking, how am I going to maintain this?
What do you
because
mean?
the same date, because you're forced to repeat data. For example, a person places a bid, then you have to collect that bidder information in the bid, in the lot, the item itself, and then I have a bids sub collection, which I've moved into a main collection now, because at the end of some auctions I'll need to query all bidders who did X. And if it's a sub collection, I can't do that. So I've moved that bidders information into a main collection, because if it's a sub collection, I can only do it based on its root collection. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, you can query across sub collections.
Yeah, I can query across this way, but I can't get all bids, for example, that have been placed in the last 6 months, if those bids were placed on different. Anyway, that's not a good example.
Firebase,
but anyway, I moved it to
everywhere.
I moved it to as a main collection, but then I have to put bidder information in that main collection, in that bid collection, and also put the bidder name for ease of query, bidder first name or bidder username on the item itself. But what if the bidder changes one of those things? You have to go find it and replace it everywhere it appears. The whole normalization.
It's like even with chat messages, the basic the chat widget in that Flutterflow provides, which is obviously great, apart from the fact that the photos get huge on web app, but hopefully really
they do.
Yeah, they do not. They're just massive all of a sudden. It's very strange. I think it's just an oversight, which hopefully will get fixed at some point. But so you have your chat document or whatever, but it doesn't really have everything immediately. The first thing you need is the other user's user document, which I actually have some. I'm not sure about the security of that kind of stuff. If you're just constantly grabbing, but it seems, I know it seems to be best practice. So I guess just keep sensitive information not in those documents as much as possible. But in general, then you need to show a list of available chats. You obviously need the photos from each of those documents. And when you start doing those kind of nested queries where you're grabbing all chats and then 20 user documents, it starts to bog down. Plus, if you want to then go to that chat, you need, yet another document. And so then as you say, what you end up doing is putting more information in the main chat document. But then it means if the user changes their profile picture, you got to update it in every single
change it everywhere.
And
that I think is the main example that they use, and if maybe you guys could do something like this in the future, is the main example they use on the Firebase channel, YouTube channel. They talk about normalization, and they use that exact example of updating a user profile picture, and that's where batch writes and reads can come in handy and all that. So. Hopefully we get to that.
And I have a question actually for Firebase, because I'm not using it, but you're saying that when you have something and you have to duplicate it, right?
Yeah.
To actually get it. But if you actually write, for example, if you have an order and you have the item and you need all the items inside this order, but actually if you just write the ID of the item, and you can actually create a custom function inside Flutterflow and actually get those two and combine them all together. Isn't it? I was just thinking if this is true and this is possible.
Wait, say it one more time. What do you mean?
Can I? Okay,
yeah, go
sure.
for it.
Now, if I understood your question correctly, it's a I get it. I get where you're coming from, because that's the relational way of thinking about data. And then you have to like forget. You watch all these tutorials at the beginning, and they say forget everything you know about about data in the relational world. But you can do that, Dimitar. You can just simply put an ID for that item, and then make a query to get that item's details. That will be the best way to maintain data integrity. However, as you scale, the number of queries will also suddenly it scales quite fast. And I learned it the hard way when I created a CRM for just 5 users, and in the first like 3 days, the CRM was making like 60,000 queries. I was like, wow, how?
Did you post about that on Discord, being like, "Is this normal?" I remember, like, a while ago.
No, I didn't post on Discord, but I have faced that problem.
I remember earlier today, someone's like, "Is this normal?"
So in a NoSQL way, the way they explain it everywhere, I'm no expert by any means, but the way they explain it is you create your data per screen. So you say, what do I need to load on this screen, and then you create the data to fit that screen, just enough to fit that screen to minimize the number of queries.
Isn't that dangerous when your screens change? Because obviously your app evolves and then your data is designed. I mean, I get it. And I think that it's the general approach, I think, is you're designing around, rather than designing to have the most efficient database possible, you're designing it based on the use, I think. Right? Which definitely makes sense. But I mean, really, NoSQL sometimes is just like shoving stuff into cracks. Like, when we used to tidy up for like the grandparents' business, it's just like open the wardrobe, shove everything in there, and pretend it. Wherever you want to put data. But I think that's interesting.
I think we have like a couple of minutes. If Ali just wanted to share your experience using Flutterflow in general, if you think you can share that.
No, it's been great. I must say, it's completely transformed the way I do things, because I mostly work with clients. There's a few projects of my own, and hopefully I can get to a day where my brand is sitting here at the back, when I can decide where I want to put my office. I've been here for 2 months, and I still haven't decided which corner I want to sit in. But when I've decided that, and so I'm trying to build some of my own projects, I think, like most of us are, and but for the moment I'm doing most of the work for clients, and it's very different use cases. We have people in fitness, for example. We have auctioneers. We have people in finance, which is, well, I say finance, not like Flix, which is public facing. This is more of a financial services provider, and
dodgy backroom finance.
We have sales people, sales teams that we've created multiple CRMs for. So it's completely transformed the way I do things. And
has there been any client project or type of project that you found doesn't translate well, either to Firebase or Flutterflow, or that's just been like a little bit out of the? You're like, I'm not sure if we can do that.
Not from an app, not from a native app perspective, but from the web side of things. That's like I think Abel, I think, touched on this. Is said, if you want to build a web app, then go for it, but not websites. Such. So the admin dashboard side of things was always a challenge. Still continues to be a little bit, but I feel invincible. I feel like I can do anything. When you got me, I feel like I've got this. I've got.
No, I definitely know what you mean.
Yeah, so maybe we can expect an admin dashboard in the future in the marketplace.
I should actually. The CRM actually was quite nice, because it was before I understood the responsive side of things a little bit, and I was moaning on the forums quite a bit, and then I realized the wrap widget, max widths and containers, if you just use them wisely, and then on top of that, with the conditional visibility is my last resort, because then that means I have to build 2 widgets that do the same thing.
Exactly.
So my go-to is wraps and widgets, but obviously now you have to do the calculations with the pixels and the screen sizes and at what point is the breakpoint. But for the longest time, I sort of put websites together in WordPress, and I worked a lot with Elementor, which teaches you about the concepts of containers, and so it's becoming much easier to work with the responsive side of things. But yeah, Flutterflow has been great, man. I don't know. How are you guys feeling so far? Because nobody asks you. Let me tell from your side first of all, because you do the whole API thing, which is very different from most of us. First of all, maybe why did you decide to stick to that? You like your own backend, clearly. You feel you got more control, but why not the jump to Firebase? And how has your experience with Flutterflow been so far?
Yeah, actually, my first application that I did with Flutterflow was because I'm a fan of Newcastle United, which is fun fact. No, I didn't saw that. Didn't say that. Yeah, in the live stream. But yeah, I'm a fan of Newcastle United, and I'm actually a fan in the Bulgarian, like paid fan for the fan club. And I wanted to create an application for the Bulgarian fan club, and I wanted to use the Firebase the Firebase notifications, and the Firebase database, because mainly it's free, because when you have the Flutterflow plan, you can use it for free, first of all. And when I started, actually, you didn't have any API calls, because right now I think you have 3 API calls for free. And that's why I tried actually to use the Flutterbase, but because there was a website and I wanted to make an application, so I had to maintain 2 databases at the same time and just be in real time sync, which is not an easy task. Actually, it was not that hard, but it's not an easy task to do. And actually, I tried that, but it was not working for me. I mean, the thing that I want is that I want something. First of all, I'm super used with MySQL and PHP, so it's like a piece of cake to just do something and do whatever I want to. And with Firebase, I needed to learn some stuff. And for example, I'm not sure, but you can correct me with that. You have some limitations, like when you're requesting something, or actually when you're filtering something, you have like limitation. We talked about that with Josh.
Yeah, the different combos of like limited.
Yes, exactly.
Not in array or something like that, which is 10.
Exactly.
Limited to 10,
exactly.
Yeah.
And I didn't know about this hack, to be honest, when I started, like Josh said, and he's like for me, he's the expert in Firebase, and he always find a way to just get through the problems. But I didn't know that it was, I didn't know that. So it was much easier for me just to code this in PHP. And because I'm using PHP 8, because I like to be on the verge of the cliff, so I like to fall from top of it. And then it was the SDK, actually. It's for PHP, you have to use it for version 7. So I had a very big problems, like converting. I only use one file to use with the version 7, which is connecting to Firebase, because I'm getting the tokens for the notification in order to send a notification. So it's, but yeah, in general, I can just say that if you are a new user and if you are no coder, like most of the people that are going to be, I guess, in using Flutterflow, it's the best way it's to use Firebase, because the learning curve is not that big, that huge. It's actually, it should be super easy. And that's why I'm using MySQL.
For no coders, I would say also there are, because I think ultimately, relational or non-relational, they each have their uses, right? And so for the more complex your app is, it's likely that actually the best is a combination of the two. Yes, certain things for certain things. We kind of came across this with, for instance, inputting stuff from our users about maybe their transactions, that kind of contextual data. NoSQL is great for that, right? It's just very loose and flexible. but actual monetary payments, in-out balance updates, where it needs to be checked, where you have going back and forth to the banks and whatnot, and clearance delays. Actually, a relationship database makes more sense for that, right? Because it's just being stored in a very structured way because banks haven't changed in years. And there are great no-code alternatives for that type of thing that don't require it. For instance, Xano has always been my favorite, which are entirely fully hosted and have really, really powerful stuff for building with like a kind of point, almost like the Flutterflow action builder, to just take your data and do those kind of things you were doing in with a series and make things, iterate over this, and it's got that built-in tester, which will say, this is the error, and you can really do, scheduled stuff. And there are a few others, app-based, backend list and stuff.
Backend list is one I've used extensively, which is quite awesome. It's a very complete solution.
I really like their drag and drop function builder Lego bricks.
Yes, that was my first introduction to sort of understanding. I used to go there and then copy that code, the things I did.
For those of you who don't know, it's like, I think it's something developed by like MIT or open source or something. It's literally like building functions with Lego bricks. So you plug them in and they only take certain inputs, outputs, if, ands. But for me, I found it very helpful at the beginning. The thing I didn't like about Backend was more the kind of this all-in-one interface, whereas Xano is just like a database, not a front end, whereas Backend was giving you both. But they're both amazing tools, and there are a few other ones and a lot of them are they're free, have free, at least limited versions. So if you're looking for those kind of solutions, I would highly recommend it. Check those out and see what you can do. Cool.
And now with the expansion of the APIs, I mean, things are becoming more and more open for Flutterflow. Wouldn't you say, Dimitar?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. I have to say that, and because they actually at the very beginning, the Flutterflow, I know that they focused in Firebase, which is I expect that. I mean, I understand that, but I'm really super happy that recently they are actually treating API calls and Firebase request like the same level, and every time I see, like, for example, like they introduced, like, it was 1 month or 2 months ago, the auto scroll feature, and it was only locked to Flutterflow. So it was not, as you can see, it was not the best thing for me, but I saw that right now they will include that in the next update. So, and I also appreciate that this autocomplete, I think it will work with Apico. I didn't check that, didn't test that. But
I looked.
think it will work.
Seems like it will work. Yeah, it looks configured
exactly.
exactly the same way. Yeah, configured exactly the same way.
So I really appreciate that people can have the ability to just choose wherever they want to do it. So I really like that. So I really like that, and I'm looking forward to the next version of Firebase. When I say Firebase all the time, it's Flutterflow.
Too many ifs.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't keep up with the updates these days, to be honest. I used to be able to, but I don't seem to be able to. They just come so thick and fast and furious. I mean, there are widgets like some of the new ones that I haven't told you. Cool.
So, Ali, do you want to say something at the end of?
No, I mean, thanks for having me, guys. This is awesome. Now I must go create timestamps. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, exactly. I want your timestamps by this evening, and
at least I know where to look.
Yeah, exactly. And also, if you do want to, it'd be great if you want to put that tutorial. We can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Use our little Flexpert thing.
Just be in one place. That'll be great.
Whatever you're willing to share it, and we can just input it. It's really quick to make it, and then we can.
I'll give it a day or two. I'll give it a day or two. See if anybody has specific questions about this. Otherwise, I'll just create the step by step, and then we can put it up there.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. Thank you to all those comments and technical expertise, especially shared by PhD. And to everybody else watching on the replay, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Take care.